Today, we're going to be tackling medieval cheesecake. Welcome to I'll Eat Your History. I'm Jillian, and I watch historical food recreation videos. I react to them, and then I try to make them. This is in reacting to Tasting History's first couple of videos, which I'm so excited about. I am so excited to watch this video. I'm going to react to it. I'm going to tell you what I think. Me and Max are going to have a little hangout, and then I'm going to try to make this cheesecake. So we're going to see what happens. I've never made a cheesecake before. I don't know what's going to happen. So let's find out. And as a reminder, I have not seen this episode.
Hi everyone, welcome to Tasting History. I'm your host, Max Miller, and today we're going to be making one of my favorite desserts, a cheesecake.
Fantastic.
But not just any cheesecake, because just like me, 14th century kings also had great taste. So we're going to be making a 14th century cheesecake called a Sambocade. This time on Tasting History.
Which I always want to call Sambuca, which I think is alcohol.
Now the recipe we're using today comes from the kitchens of King Richard II, around 1390. And recipe writers at this time were pretty vague about things, so
Great.
The recipe just says, make a crust.
Great.
Not too helpful.
That's like we're on the British Bake Off, and it's the technical challenge, and it's like, just make a crust. You should know how to do that. Well, I don't.
What kind of crust did they want? Did they want a hot water crust? Probably not. Did they want like a fair flour crust, which is like a today's pie crust? Maybe. But I'm going to be taking maybe a little bit of liberty here and use a tart crust. It's delicious, it's super easy to make, and most importantly, all of the ingredients in the tart crust would have been available in Richard's kitchen.
Okay, sounds good.
Get
Let's do it.
First, you'll need 2 sticks, about 226 grams of cold butter.
Got it.
160 grams of
I assume unsalted butter. We're learning about being careful about salting things. If you saw my bread making video, you'll understand why.
icing sugar, 6 large egg yolks, and now keep those 6 egg whites because those are going to make an appearance later.
I'm going to keep them.
450 grams of plain flour and just a pinch of salt.
Just a pinch.
Now you don't need to write anything down. All of the ingredients are in the description down below, as well as the full recipe, both the original recipe and the translation I'm using today.
And of note, I don't have the recipe in my video, but I have a link to his video. So if you want to make this, go on over to Max's video and make it from there.
Now you can actually use this tart crust for a modern day recipe because it's so delicious. But at this point I would put in maybe a little bit of vanilla or lemon zest or something to kind of give it some flavor. Now I'm not going to use anything extra because the cheesecake that we're making today has so much flavor that it's just not necessary.
Wonderful.
Now once you have your ingredients, go ahead and cut the butter into pieces,
Okay.
about a ½ inch,
Okay.
and sift in the icing sugar.
I could do that.
Now,
I
you
have a
gotta sift
sister.
it in because you'll get clumps otherwise, and we don't want clumps.
I have a sifter. I didn't mean to say a sister. I have a sifter. Okay, so here's the thing. Now, he has a stand mixer. I know they didn't have those in the Middle Ages. I know Richard II didn't have a stand mixer. I don't either. But I do have a hand mixer so that at least I won't have to do it by hand. I'm sure you could mix this by hand if you had 5 years and very big biceps. But I'm going to go ahead and use a hand mixer.
Now go ahead and beat the sugar and the butter together,
Okay.
but start the mixer on low. Now, I've never
Okay.
done this, of course, but I have heard of people starting it on high and powdered sugar going absolutely everywhere, and then their cat running through it and leaving little powdered sugar poppers all the way up to the bed.
Oh.
I've never done that.
Okay, you haven't.
Other people.
Got it.
Now, once the
Noted.
sugar does start to become incorporated, you can kick it up to high and beat until smooth.
Okay,
Then add the egg yolks and beat on medium until somewhat incorporated.
okay,
Now, it's probably going to look a little curdled, but that's actually okay.
okay.
It'll go away later on.
We're gonna do
also,
that.
if you are going to be adding any flavor like vanilla, now is the time.
Noted.
Probably a teaspoon. That'd be good.
I'm not going to add
Once
anything.
the egg is incorporated, add in the pinch of salt and your flour and beat on the lowest setting for about 20
Am I
seconds.
supposed to do it like that? Like
you want
that guy
it to
did?
just start to come together as like a crumbly mixture. You don't want it to form a ball. Then
Okay.
you take a piece of parchment and lay it out onto your workspace, dump the dough onto it, divide the dough into 2 piles, set one aside,
Okay.
and spread the
Okay.
remaining pile into kind of an even layered circle.
Okay.
Then place another sheet of parchment over that
Okay.
and get rolling.
I'll do it.
Now, like I said, this tart dough is so easy to work with. That's why I love it. You can just roll it out. It's so forgiving. It never sticks. You don't have to get it into a perfect circle. And later on, if it does kind of crumble away or anything while you're putting it into the dish, you can just patch it up on the sides. It's the best.
We're gonna find out. He loves this, so I will let you know what I think about his magical crust dough.
I just love it. Now, once you roll it to the thickness that you want, between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch, pop it in the fridge and leave it there for about 20 minutes. Now, while the dough chills, preheat your oven to 420.
Now, of note, so I went ahead and took the written instructions so that I could go and buy ingredients and prepare myself for if I needed any equipment. That's all I've done. I've only read the recipe. I haven't watched this. And he doesn't mention how long you're supposed to chill it for in the written recipe. So I had to do a little bit of research. And I found 30 minutes, and so he's saying 20 minutes. So I've actually heard too that if you leave it overnight or leave it like a longer period of time, it gives the gluten more time or something happens with the fat and the gluten. I don't know, but it's supposed to be more delicious.
25 degrees Fahrenheit, and go ahead and smash that like button. Now, that's actually the most important part of the recipe, because to paraphrase Pink Floyd, how can you have any cheesecake if you don't smash that like button?
That is exactly what Pink Floyd says.
Now, once the button's been smashed, go ahead and gather up the rest of your ingredients.
Okay.
For the filling, you will need 4 tablespoons of heavy cream.
Check.
150 grams of sugar.
Check.
2 tablespoons of dried breadcrumbs.
Yes.
And 6 egg whites.
Okay.
I told you they'd be back. Then either 3 tablespoons of dried elderflower or 6 tablespoons of fresh elderflower.
So of note, in his video, he links to Amazon for the dried elderflower. That link doesn't work anymore, at least not when I tried it.
This is actually the ingredient that gives the dish its name. Sambocade comes from the Latin sambucus, which means elderflower.
That's what I found out when I was doing my little research on Amazon, is because they called it sambucus or whatever. It's like, oh, that's where the Sambocade comes from. I see how the little Latin words get all busy. Those busy Latin words.
And lastly, the most important ingredient in a cheesecake, the cheese.
The cheese.
You'll need 450 grams of either farmer's cheese or ricotta cheese, or if you want to really impress people, go ahead and make your own fresh cheese.
That's what I did.
It's actually really easy.
It is actually really easy.
Here's a link to the video where I walk you through it, and I'll put it down in the description as well.
Yeah.
Now, once everything is gathered, assuming it's been 20 minutes, you can go ahead and pull the dough out of the fridge. Now, if it hasn't been 20 minutes, wait around, or you can check to see if the parchment sticks. If it sticks, keep it in there. If it doesn't stick, then it's good to go.
That's a little tip.
Now I'm using an 8-inch pan for this, a cheesecake tin. Now you can use a 9-inch, which is more common, but the cheesecake won't be quite as thick. You can also just use a regular pie pan.
Thank goodness.
Anything works. The recipe isn't specific.
I only have a pie
Frankly,
pan.
the springform pan wouldn't have even existed back then.
Thank you.
But it makes it look so nice.
Exactly.
That's why.
Well, that's why I was like, you know what?
Go ahead and
I can use whatever I want, because what the heck did they have back when Richard II was hanging out? I mean, why not? We'll see how it goes.
With the tart dough, then you can put a little design on the top if you want.
We could get a little crimp
line it with aluminum foil, add in some pie weights.
Now, if that's of note too, in the recipe, he doesn't say to blind bake it. He doesn't say to put in these little weights.
And blind bake the crust at 425 Fahrenheit for 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Now, you probably think nothing of the fact that this cheesecake has a crust, but you'd be pretty flabbergasted if you were an ancient Greek athlete.
I would.
Stick with me here.
Yes, history time.
The first cheesecake that we know of came from ancient Greece. It was probably a savory version around 2000 BC, made on the Isle of Samos.
Yes.
It was the traditional cake for ancient Greek weddings, and it was probably served to athletes at the first Olympic Games in 776 BC.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if Usain Bolt goes to the Cheesecake Factory to load up on carbs before he competes.
That's a good question. By the way, fun fact. Did you know those athletes were all nude? You saw their little danglies. They actually, if you didn't know this, maybe you knew this, but they actually did compete naked in the Olympic Games. They were fully naked. They were wrestling each other, fully naked men. I'm sure that made a lot of people happy, but it was really about to like honor and appreciate the physical form. So I've read. I'm a bit of a Greek fanatic. I think I was Greek in a past life, which is a whole nother thing. But anyway, So I'm excited. I like to think that my previous little Greek self enjoyed this delicious cheesecake that or a version of this cheesecake we're about to taste.
I'm going to say yes.
Oh yeah,
These ancient Greek cheesecakes would have bared no resemblance to the modern New York-style cheesecake. To get a little closer to our modern dessert, we have to look to the recipes of Roman senator and historian Cato the Elder.
I do love a good strong nose. Mm-hmm.
In his treatise De Agricultura, he had 3 cheesecake recipes, including the first recipe known to have a crust.
Noted.
Now, unfortunately for Cato, he didn't hire a very good marketing team, and so he named his crusted cheesecake Placenta.
No!
And that is why you don't see it on a lot of menus today. But that was probably also the recipe that some plucky young...
Wait a minute. It was called placenta? Oh, I am so using that. I am going to find that recipe and tell everybody that I made placenta. I mean, come on. That's going to be amazing. Okay, we'll get back to this. We'll get back to this lovely little cartoon, this little Viking cartoon we're about to watch.
Roman legion took up to Britannia, where, in the 14th century, a genius of unknown name added sugar. Sweet, sweet white gold.
Fantastic.
And that is the Sambocade.
Okay.
So by now, the crust should be done blind baking. Take it out of the oven.
I feel like we just went on a little evolutionary journey. It's like we saw it grow up. We're seeing the little cheesecake grow up. And now we're like, I don't know, maybe it's just started hitting puberty now that we've got sugar in it. And that's what we're gonna, I don't know why I went there. That seems gross and inappropriate, but that's what I did. So let's find out what's next.
Remove the pie weights and the aluminum foil and check the bottom. If it still looks a little raw, pop it back in without the pie weights for another 2 or 3 minutes. Otherwise,
you don't want a soggy bottom. Yep, he's gonna say it. You don't want a soggy bottom. All of us great British Bake Off fans know all about this soggy bottom.
You're gonna have a soggy bottom, and Mary Berry does not like a soggy bottom.
She does not.
Once you are happy with your crust, go ahead and turn the oven down to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, because that's what we're going to bake our cheesecake at. Now while the crust cools, it's time to get started on your filling.
Then we're gonna do
Combine the elderflower into the cream and let it soak for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
But don't relax, because while the elderflower soaks, you get to strain cheese. And this takes
Oh gosh.
Take a strainer and put the cheese in just a bit at a time and press it through with the back of a spoon.
Okay.
It should come out the other side with the consistency of cream cheese.
I am not
Once
looking
the cheese
forward.
goes through the strainer, put it into the stand mixer and whip on medium.
I am not looking forward to doing that. Making the cheese was hard enough. It was like a half an hour of stirring on the stove. Again, go ahead and watch that episode if you're curious about what my experience in making his cheese was. But okay, I am preparing myself ahead of time for this.
For about a minute. Then add the elderflower cream in your breadcrumbs and whip until incorporated.
Okay.
With the mixer still running on medium, slowly add the sugar, then whip until smooth.
Do that.
Now it's time for a beating of the egg whites. Now this is a very important step because it is the only leavening agent that is going to be in your cake. It's the air in the egg whites. So if you don't get enough air in there, if they don't get fluffy enough, then the cake is going to be short and dense and still delicious, but, you know, a little stodgy. So beat the egg whites past the frothy stage until they form nice, stiff white peaks.
Yeah.
Then working...
That's going to take some time. I did that when I was a child because I was really into baking when I was a kid. I believe in myself. I could do this as a child. I can do this as an adult.
And quickly but gently fold them into the cheese mixture until no streaks of white are left.
Okay.
You want to keep as much air in there as possible, so don't overmix it.
Don't do it.
Then pour the mixture into the crust and pop it in the oven at 375 for 50 minutes, or until there's just a slight wobble in the center.
A little wobble,
I would
just
start
like me.
checking it at about 45 minutes because ovens vary. It actually took my oven to 55 minutes, so, you know, it's not a science.
It's baking.
Wait, it is.
Oh.
Never mind.
Okay, I won't.
Now, while the cheesecake is in the oven, you should have plenty of time to ponder the question, how did this cheesecake become that cheesecake? Now, the Sambocade has a crust. It has sugar, so it's a dessert, but it's still not the...
Okay, so here we go, right? We're like a little prepubescent teenager or whatever. with the Sambocade, and now we're gonna grow into an adult, a little sexy New York cheesecake adult.
Same as a New York style cheesecake, and that is because of the cheese.
History time! Again!
Around the time that King Richard was satisfying his sweet tooth with
Good for
Sambocade,
him.
his soldiers were off in France fighting to reclaim the lands lost by King John. That was the bad guy from Robin.
Yes, I was just gonna say Robin Hood. Robin Hood. This is Robin Hood. So we can now, in our little story, Robin Hood and his little merry men are frolicking about as we eat our prepubescent cheesecake. But not placenta. No placenta.
Now the lovely ladies of Neufchâtel-en-Bray in the north of France realized that although these English invaders were pillaging their towns, they were also kind of cute while they did it. Now they couldn't be overt in their affection, of course, so they took cheese and molded it into the shape of a heart. The Coeur de Neufchâtel.
Those frisky little French ladies. They had to get a little bit of their British men.
They'd give the cheese to the soldiers as a covert way to show their love. Isn't that romantic?
Is it?
The cheese became popular back in England. And
Wait, what is happening? What's happening there? What's happening? What's happening there? Like this guy, this lady, she's showing off her cheese. This guy was just eating it by the spoonful and like ready to throw it up. The thing is, somebody painted this. Somebody painted this scene. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna paint a scene where a guy is spitting up some white cheese. I can't even. All right, let's keep going. All right, okay, this is happening. Let's go.
stayed popular until it made its way to America, where in 1872, William Lawrence tried his hand at making it himself. But whether on purpose or by accident, we don't know, but he added too much cream and dubbed his new concoction Philadelphia cream cheese. Then in 1929, an immigrant named Arnold Rubin, who already had a sandwich named after him, used this Philadelphia cream cheese to make a cheesecake. And that dessert was the first Lindy's.
I did not know that. The guy who made the Reuben sandwich also created the New York style cheesecake. This is why this is a history channel. And we're learning things. And look at those delicious cheesecakes. I wish that this is what we were making, but it isn't. There's no cream cheese. There's this weird farmer's cheese or whatever it is that I made.
New York style cheesecake. But that's not what we're making. We're making a Sambocade.
Exactly.
So let's get back
to that.
So go ahead and open the oven, and if the cheesecake looks baked along the top and has just a slight wobble to it, that means
That's
it's
what
done.
we're looking for.
Now it should have puffed up quite a bit, but it's going to deflate some.
As we all do.
To diminish the deflation, you want to leave it in the oven. Turn the oven off and leave the door open just a crack while it slowly cools down. Quick tip, this actually also works for custard pies, like a pumpkin pie. Just leave the door open and let it slowly cool down and you won't get that unsightly crack on the top.
Also another
After
good
about
tip.
15 minutes,
Max
take it
with
out
the
of oven
tips.
and let it finish cooling to room temperature.
Okay, that
Then you
doesn't
can either
look...
serve it plain or garnish it with some honey, or, as I did, some fresh berries. So that is the 14th century Sambocade. Now, as I said, all of the ingredients are listed down below along with the recipe, as well as links to some of the harder to find ingredients. Elderflower in this case. Now, I'm sure you already have, but if you haven't, hit that like button, leave me a comment below, and go ahead and subscribe so you can join me next time on Tasting History.
Oh, it's still the ketchup one. So the last episode I watched of him, it was pushing this ketchup episode. Is it really wanting me to know all about ketchup? I don't know. Is there something in the algorithms like Jillian needs ketchup on cheesecake? I hope not. Okay, I've watched the video. I'm gonna do my best here. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm a little worried. It's a lot of little steps, and this is a little kitchen, but I am up for the challenge. So I did a previous video where I made medieval cheese, so we're gonna use that cheese in this recipe. And I also made some bread that we will use in the recipe as well for breadcrumbs, and we're gonna see how it all turns out. Okay, so we are ready to begin. We're going to start with making the crust, and then we're gonna let it chill. So the first step is to take the icing sugar, to sift it. So I've got my handy dandy little sifter. And I'm just gonna pour it on in there. Just like being a kid in a sandbox. I don't know if this is really necessary. I've never done this before, but I also haven't made that many pie crusts. All right, and then we add in the cubed butter. Go ahead and dump that in. Now we're gonna go ahead and beat it until it's smooth. Of note, I did not let this butter get to be room temperature prior to doing this, which I think would be key. Would be key to have this be room temperature, make it a lot easier. But we're gonna do our best. Okay, here's the deal. This butter needed to be room temperature, particularly if I'm doing this by hand. Learn from my mistake. Please make this room temperature. I'm getting tired. So I'm thinking if I add in some liquid, it might help help the process up a little bit. So I'm going to jump forward, even though this isn't finished. I'm going to jump forward and go into the next step, which is adding the egg yolks, which I happen to have right here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. It does look like there might still be a few little pieces of butter in there that aren't fully incorporated, but maybe that'll make the crust more flaky. I don't know. Okay, and now we're gonna add in the flour and the salt until it makes a loose, crumbly dough. Sorry for my messy little workstation. I'm feeling a little chaotic, but it's okay. We're moving forward. We're moving forward. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. That to me looks like a loose, crumbly dough. We're gonna see what happens next. Okay, so it said to divide into two. This is very crumbly. It makes me wonder, did I add too much flour? This looks suspicious. That looks about half. I'm highly suspicious right now. Did I measure something incorrectly? Now we're putting it between the two pieces of parchment and we're rolling it to about a 1/4 inch thick. Or a half inch or 1/4 inch. It might need to be a half inch because of this. I feel like I screwed up somehow. This looks crazy. I am a hot mess. This is a hot mess. Maybe because my butter wasn't melted enough. Maybe this is what it's supposed to be, but it's super crumbly. I mean, he said crumbly. I feel like I'm on nailed it right now. But that's okay. So you can see the little things of butter that didn't get incorporated because it was too cold. Yeah, I shouldn't have been so impatient. Baking does not like impatient people. I clearly don't know what I'm doing here, but at least I know enough. I think it was a 1/4 inch to an 1/8 of an inch. It couldn't have been a half an inch. A half an inch seems like it's too much. I didn't have my glasses on, so that might be misreading. This is such a hot mess. Okay. All right. Whatever. Whatever. Max, I'm sorry I have failed you. We'll see what the final product looks like, but clearly I'm not getting an A plus on this project. Okay, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna call this good and we're gonna find out what happens next. Once it's chilled, we'll bake it. We hope. We're, we're gonna find out. Okay, so the adventure continues. He had us separated out into two, and in the video, he only used one. So I don't know what we're supposed to do with the other half of the dough. I got out 2 pie tins, or rather they're cake tins. I do know the difference between a cake and a pie because I thought, well, maybe that would be more cheesecakey is cake tins as opposed to pie tins, since I have 2 crusts, if you want to call them that. I thought I'll just bake both of them and we'll see what we find out. I will say, hot mess in my refrigerator because it's so crumbly and I'm not doing smooth here. Okay, so let's see what happens when we try to put this little crumbly mess into a cake tin. I keep on calling it a pie tin, into a cake tin. Now he said he loves this because it's very forgiving. We're about to find out. Okay, so the first one, I don't have any confidence that it will ever be perfect. So I'm just gonna work with it. I'm just gonna go forward. And maybe this will be more like a little Play-Doh experiment where I just shove it in there. My kitchen is a little hot mess behind me. That's what's happening right now too. So we're gonna take this first one. We're gonna see what magic we can make happen. I'm going to, oh, I can hear you all cringing or being afraid. I'm afraid. Okay, I'm gonna try this way maybe. Okay. Oh, I rolled it too thick. Oh my gosh. Is any of this gonna come up? Some of it is. Come on, you can do this. You can do it, baby. I feel like this is not the way I should be doing it. I'm so unnailed it right now. Okay, that's happening. Okay. All right. Well, it's kind of happening. Okay, we're gonna make it work. We are making it work. I am not getting invited to the Great British Bake Off. We're just gonna make it happen. We're just making it happen and pushing it in. Okay, it's not beautiful. There certainly isn't going to be any fancy design around the edge like he did, but I'm gonna hope that it keeps liquid in. That's my hope. So there's one. We'll see if we can't do better with the second one. Okay, second try. Okay, so this time instead of trying to lift it up, which I think was a horrible idea, I'm gonna try to flip it. I'm gonna see how that works. Also a hot mess. Okay. Well, that was a thought. I feel like this is going to be a tutorial that baking teachers are going to use to be like, and this is why you don't do this. You help yourself. Okay, we're going to go ahead with that as the finished product, and we're going to call this rustic. that's that's what we're going to call this. We're going to call this a rustic crust. Yes, which means it's a hot mess. All right, now let's get on to the blind baking. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, because maybe you're as clueless about all of this as I apparently am, blind baking is when you bake the cake. No, not the cake. It's because of these cake tins that I can't tell my difference between a cake and a pie. It's when you bake a pie crust ahead of time, because if you expect the pie crust to bake after you put the filling in, it might not totally bake and it might come out raw. So we're trying to avoid that. Okay, our rustic crusts. Put one in there, one in there. So we're doing this to protect the pie crust from the weights. Now you can use pastry weights if you're fancy. Obviously, as you can tell by now, I certainly don't have pastry. I certainly don't do pastry very often. I don't have pastry weights. So you can use beans. You can also use rice. So I'm using rice. Do not cook rice with this. This is now just for weighting your pies down. And yes, I hear what you're thinking. Jillian, if you had weighted pie crust down before, shouldn't you be able to do this better? You would think so, but apparently not. Now I'm going to pop them in the oven for 10 minutes. Okay, our pie crusts have finished blind baking, so now we're going to take them out to cool. Take a little peek. Oh, okay. All right, so these are going to cool, and while those are cooling, we will make the insides. Okay, so now it is time to soak our elderflower in cream. It's kind of an interesting smell. It's not bad. It's very different. It's kind of floral, but also sweet. I'm gonna stir it like a little cauldron. And by the way, with that elderflower, I got a whole big bag of it. I don't know what to do with this massive amount except make really badly executed cheesecakes. Do you have any other ideas about what I can do with this? put the comments below because I would like to use this up. Luckily it's dried, so it will last a while, but I don't really know what to do with this gigantic bag of elderflower. Okay, cheese time. So I'm going to take that cheese that I made in the first episode and I'm going to put it through this strainer as Max instructed. And I'm sure I'm going to probably fast forward this because I'm going to guess this is going to take a bloody while. Okay. I made it through the cheese. I will tell you, I almost gave up. I almost gave up and I tried a few different things to get that cheese through. And then eventually it was like a motion that I was able to get going that made it happen. But I don't want to do that again. That was plenty, but I'm glad I didn't give up. The cheese, we're going to plop that in. So you can see that's the final grated structure. It just makes me wonder, like, could I have just put this in my Vitamix? Like, I don't, maybe it would have gumped up. I don't know. Well, anyway, I got my workout. All right, now we are going to put in the elderflower mixture, and then we will put in breadcrumbs. These are breadcrumbs from the bread that I made from the whey that I got out of the cheese making experience. They aren't very dry because I made them myself. So I'm going to toss those in, and then we're going to blend these. You can smell the elderflower. Okay, that's good enough for me. And then we're going to put in the sugar, and we are going to beat it. So I'm going to get my hand mixer out again and we'll get to town on this. We'll go to town on this. Whatever works. Okay, here we go. Well, I think that's all it's going to do. I thought it would be a bit more moist. It seems like it's a little, well, it's okay. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay. I don't know. This is the disaster episode. So maybe it's okay. Maybe it's good enough to go with my wonky pie crusts. So now I need to beat some egg whites that we're going to then fold in. I will confess, the very first one got a little bit of egg yolk in it. Oh, but it looks okay. So now we're going to beat these until they are stiff peaks. I haven't done this since I was a kid either. I used to love to bake when I was a kid. I feel like I was a better baker when I was a child than I am now. That's okay. All right, now on to whipping up some egg whites. Okay, I think we got there. You can see that there are little peaks, but they stand up, they stay upright. I don't want to overbeat it. I don't know what will happen if I overbeat it, but I'm sure something bad will happen. I don't know why I did that. Those last little pieces of egg white are so precious. Now we are going to fold this into that very gently, I guess. I'm going to just slide it in. Ooh, look at that. It really did slide. And I know from watching Great British Bake Off that I want to be gentle in folding it in because we don't want to let the air out because the air is part of the journey. So I've never done this before and I don't believe in myself. So we're going to see what happens. The problem is that what I'm folding it into is really thick. So it's hard to kind of fold them. Like they're just two totally different consistencies. Okay, it's about as much as I dare to do. That's as daring as I am. So that's what we're going to do and we'll see how it turns out. It's weird. It's weird. The Sambuca or whatever it is, elderflower, it's a very tangy, flowery flavor. I don't know. It's weird. Now we're folding it into our pie crust. You can see I got a little bit of golden brown around my horrific edges, but they're cooked and it's cool. It's cool. So we're going to put this in there and see what happens. Pie number one, or cake, whatever you want to call it. I guess if I had used a cheesecake tin, this would have only been enough for one. But since I made two pie crusts, or whatever you want to call these, it does make two, which means I'm going to have plenty to share. So, yeah, if you know me, you probably got this shoved in your face. Okay. All right, there we go. Now to put these puppies in the oven. Okay, let's check them. He said something about a little wiggle. I don't know. But they feel firm on the top and they've got a nice kind of golden coloring on the top. I think they might be done. Okay. It's been an adventure, but we've made it to the end. We've made the medieval cheesecake, the sambuca. The sambuca? Yes. Sambocade? I can't even remember anymore. I'm dizzy with the drama of making this cheesecake. So now let's see how it tastes. All right. I'm actually amazed with as much of a hot mess as I was with that crust. It looks like it's okay. It's brown on the bottom. Everybody's happy about that. It's very thin because of course I split it into two batters, to two different pies. So imagine it would be about twice as thick as that. But yeah, that's a cute little cheesecake as it turns out. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's see how it goes. Yeah, it has that very flavorful, sweet, flowery taste smell to it. It's not bad, actually. It's not too bad. I don't think I want to go through all the drama to doing this again, but it is tasty. It's sweet, but it's not too sweet. And it's very unusual. So if you're looking for a really unusual cheesecake to make for people, you can let them know how it was used to be called placenta and that you're feeding them placenta with crust. If you want to do that, you go right for it. I probably will. I think it's pretty good, actually. I don't hate it. I hated the process, but I don't hate this. I'm here for it. Okay, so there we are. Leave a comment below letting me know, what did I do wrong? Because I did a few things wrong. So feel free to call me out on anything I didn't catch. And also, again, if you have any ideas about what I can do with all that leftover elderflower, I'm open. It may be something for wellness. I think that something I read is that it's supposed to be good for coughs or something. So perhaps this is a great cheesecake to make in the wintertime. And go ahead and check out the next video. I think I'm going to be doing buttered beer like in Harry Potter, but I don't know. I think I still need to recover from this experience. So, all right, until we meet again, that's me, Jillian, out for I'll Eat Your History. And sure enough, I will. I'm going to eat this history. Okay, bye.